I'm angry with you, young people. On the 16th of June, we're going to be starting to write exams. We were avoiding exams. We started seeing the children that we led out of the classrooms being mowed down by old men. You should not just be participating in these elections. You should not just be involved. You should actually be leading. The only next 1976 I'm going to start is the 1976 that says, young people take leadership and stop moaning. Go there and take it.
This Youth Month marks 50 years since the Soweto Uprising, a moment that changed South Africa forever. On June 16, 1976, thousands of black school children marched through Soweto to protest against the apartheid government forcing Afrikaans into schools. They marched with books, placards, and courage. The apartheid government responded with bullets. One of the young people helping organize the march was Seth Mazibuko. He was just 16 years old, a member of the Student Action Committee, and one of the last surviving leaders of the class of 76. Shortly after the uprising, police arrested him and sentenced him to 7 years on Robben Island. Decades later, Seth Mazibuko is still fighting to preserve the memory of the students, parents, teachers, and communities who risked everything during the uprising. His mantra? If it wasn't for 1976, there would never be 1994. Today, as young South Africans face struggles around jobs, inequality, and opportunity, we wanted to ask, what can today's generation learn from the youth of 1976? It's time to get away. Seth, thank you so much for coming to the Politically Aware podcast. Really, I'm so grateful to have you here because I think so much of the knowledge, especially the knowledge of young people, exists from history books. It's something completely else to have this first-hand account and be able to hear the story from the man himself. So if you could be so kind, could you please tell us about your experience and take us through June 16th, 1976?
Yeah, a 15-year-old, this is who I was in 1976, and just before June, and a young person, very enthusiastic, but coming from a very poor family. I was only 15, as I indicated, and staying with my dad and my stepmom in a two-roomed house. We were 13, believe you me, in a two-roomed house in Soweto, Orlando East. You know, we had a bedroom that belonged to my parents, and then there was the dining room, kitchen that at night will be turned into almost a hostel room because the rest of us will be in that dining kitchen. But that in itself is some of those reasons that agitated or that caused me at that early age to be actually one of the leaders of 1976, and I'll explain how. And what happened is that then it was that time when apartheid system was starting to really get harsh in as far as the education of Black people in South Africa was concerned. It was that time when let's remember that the design of Bantu education was made according to Verwoerd, the architect, just made it to let Black people see the greener pastures, but not reach them. It was made, he even went to qualify it further. He said, let's make them, we can't give mathematics and science to Black people. What would they need it for? And we just need to give them domestic sites, gardening, so that then they can look after us. Now, where am I coming from? Those insults at that age were sitting with us, many of us as young people. And they really started exploding in our school. Our school was Perfeni Junior Secondary School in Orlando West, in the famous Vilakazi Street. When you come to Johannesburg, you'll know, and in Soweto, you'll know that you can't just come to Soweto without getting to Vilakazi Street. If you have not been there, you have not been to Soweto.
And I have.
Actually, Yeah. So my school was just up the road from Mandela's house, and I was in then what is called Form 2, which is now grade 9. And when the Bantu Education, the district office, imposed Afrikaans as a medium of instruction in all the schools in Soweto, and they came to our school, and our students, the students in my school were clear. They actually were the ones first who came to me and said, "We are not going to take this." And we then decided to meet. And 30th of April, that is when we started boycotting classes. And we were joined by a few other schools. And the South African Student Movement, SASM, which was part of the Black Consciousness body, then invited me as the leader and the leader of other schools at the time to attend a meeting at Wegerspreid on the 28th of May. It was that meeting then that called upon other schools in Soweto to support our school. And then a meeting of the 13th. I'm trying to microwave my presentation. Then on the 13th of June 1976, at a community hall called DOCC YMCA, we met representatives of students, and it is in that meeting when the students, it was on a Sunday, decided that now they're going to go out to the streets on Wednesday, the 16th. And it was that day, the 16th, then, the 13th. Then I was then elected the deputy chairperson of the action committee that was mandated to plan and lead June 16. Can you imagine a 15-year-old asked to lead and plan? And
crazy.
One other thing that I must bring in there is look at the timing. 13th of June, out in the streets on the 16th of June. Journalists and everyone asked me, why? Why so quick? You guys were not well planned, man. Why do you microwave the whole process like that? Two reasons. Reason one, you would not plan something that time and under apartheid and want to stay with information because you might get arrested before implementing it. The naughty one, which is number two, on the 16th of June, we're going to be starting to write exams. On the 16th, we're going to start exams. Now I'm whispering to you. We were avoiding exams. So we did not want to go for the exams. Now, those were the two main reasons, really. And yes, on the 16th of June, a cold morning. 13th of June, 14th of June, 15th of June, my birthday. Then,
what a way to spend your birthday.
What? My girlfriend brought me some cake and we shared that cake underground with all the other leaders. And I still love her.
Not together, though.
We still are. She's my wife now. Yes. She's the mother of my three kids. Yes, she waited for me even all the years that I've been on Robben Island. And really. And then on the 15th, I can tell you that at that time we were not sleeping at home. We were underground. And the life was not good because the police were already on us. And on the 16th of June, early in the morning, the schools were going to converge around my school in Orlando East. And they came from different directions. And a cold morning indeed. And as they were coming, the police started shooting. Now, that's a moment that touches me. I must also mention this and to your audience also that I'm still trying hard to heal. It's still very, very difficult. So some of me telling those stories of that time, they really bring tears, and they make me feel, yeah. But what happened is that they first threw tear gas canisters, and by God's grace, the wind was blowing back to them instead of reaching us. So the tear gas affected them more than us. And after that, they decided to unleash police dogs on us. And that also could not work. By God's grace, we used the traditional weapon, as I call it, stones, to kill the dogs. But let me tell you, I'm sorry, SPCA, and I'm very, very sorry. and that's the moment in which, as they were advancing, behind them, there was another group of students who were marching. So they thought we were sandwiching them. And that's the time they started releasing live bullets. And that's the time from us as leaders, we started counting bodies. We started seeing the children that we led out of the classrooms being mowed down by old men. That's the scene I would not wish for anyone. And it was at that time when some of the bullet caught up with the Hector Petersons, the Hastings Ndlovus, and many others. One woman who came to try and intervene was Mrs. Mandela. Mom Winnie came in and tried to talk to us and to say to the police, please move, go. And to scare them, she even said, look, if you don't move, I'll definitely get naked. And that is when they started moving. And the situation was so terrible that what was meant to be a peaceful march, and for that matter of students, ended up being what I still call it, the battle of the bullet versus a book, and the battle that ended up in blood and life. And after that, then we dispersed in different directions, but we are sure that we are definitely going to finish off what we started. And that very evening, Mama Winnie, Mama Sophie Dima was a journalist. It took us, we went to Baragwanath Hospital, which is one of the huge hospitals around Soweto. And we were going to see, and just to try and find out how many children that had been, affected. And as we were there, the nurses told us, you are not going to find any of those children in the wards. You are going to find them in the mortuary. And we went to the mortuary. And it was in that mortuary that we find bodies piled up of children. What was their white shirts, school shirts? Many of them were in blood. They had some tags. These tags were not their names, but numbers. we counted that which you could afford to count, and assisted also by the person who was there. And remember that we were stealing that moment, because they're running away from the police, that if they were to find us there was going to be another problem. And we counted just around 160 something bodies of children. And we left after that, at least knowing that we can tell parents to go to find bodies in the mortuary. And it was that time, immediately after that, that Percy Koboza, who was the editor of the then newspaper called World City Press, called a meeting and then formed what became the Committee of 10. Those were parents: Dr. Motlane, Mrs. Mandela, Dr. Matlari, and Tom Mantata was a teacher, and Dr. Manas Buthelezi, Dr. Helen Kuzwayo, and these mothers and fathers came together to become parents that them were between us and the community, and supported us, started even arranging for funerals. And the very first funeral was going to be that of Hector Peterson and 2 others, and it was supposed to be at Regina Mundi. The funeral was going to be on the 4th, but unfortunately I got arrested on the 3rd of July. And I was taken from my home. It was naughty of me, because that morning we were in hiding, what we used to call hibernation. But that morning, I so much wanted to be with my dad and mom. The child in me was erupting. And when I came home, and then my mom and my dad, I walked them in the morning to the bus station. And then from there came back. And coming back, I just said, let me take a nap a bit. After taking a nap, that was the wrong decision actually that I took, because after that, there was the whole army in my home. And then that then started. And the joke about that is that I told you that we're 13. So they started, when they came in, they asked me, where is Seth Mazibuko? I said, no, Seth Mazibuko is working somewhere in town. And they then went directly to my brother, who was about 8, 6.
Wow.
Manhandled my brother and said, was Seth Mazibuko? Where's Seth Mazibuko? And my brother simply pointed at me, Gotland. And that is when they grabbed me and then took me into a hippo. And hippo, these big vans. And then from there, by the way, my brother passed on. He was my younger brother, and he always said to me, he feels guilty that he sold me out. There's a devil. And then I was taken to John Foster Square, now what is called Johannesburg Central Police Station, to be interrogated. I will never forget the experience of being kept in solitary confinement. A child of 16.
Just 16.
Just turned 16. Then I was then taken to what now we call Constitution Hill, where there's Constitution Court, kept in a very small cell. And the process, the law at that time, they had what was called Section 6 of the Terrorism Act of 1966, which allowed the police to keep you in detention without trial for not less than 18 months, kept in solitary confinement. I can assure you that was the 18 months also that was pain in my life, where they could even, I say this openly, and I hope you don't have sensitive audience, but you'll apologize. They would literally take a twine and bricks and make you squat and tighten up, your private parts with a twine and ask you to lift up bricks in the twine. You will not understand the pain being a woman, but it's a heavy one. A lady that we used to be with, Sbongile Mthembu, they will take pliers, pull up her nipples using pliers. They would have needles facing up on a cardboard and ask you to jump on them. Now, I'll never forget the different forms of torture. I'll never forget the moment, and I still to date will tell you the best friend I had in detention was ants. When they give you tea, you literally drop 1 or 2 drops of your coffee or tea to be able to invite ants because they are going to be your friends for the day. I hate flies to date, but flies that time would be your friend. If you have had a fly coming in, you'll never want it out from yourself because it will keep you busy for the day. Now, these are the experiences, some of them even really destroying, a total destroy and undermine of me as a child. And after that 18 months, there was a period, now they started hunting again. I was released for a very short period. I was a naughty boy. And then after that, I then was redetained. And now that is in 1977. After being redetained, then we were taken to, then our trial were called Soweto 11. Where 11 of us were charged. The case against us was sedition, alternatively terrorism. We talk about the 16, 17-year-old here. Sometimes apartheid can just cost you a lot. And yes, we were, just hold on a minute.
Sure thing.
We have to show you this. Can you see that?
Yes. Can you put it down? What does it say there? There we go. Perfect.
So what 11? That was the 11 students, 11 of us who were charged for all that happened in Soweto in 1976. There was only one woman, the one I told you about, Sbongile Mthembu, now Mrs. Mukabela. And then out of the 11 of us, 4 of us got prison sentence, and I got 7 years. Then I was taken, and then the rest were given suspended sentence, the 7. And then myself, Dan Mnzizi, and Mefi Morube were taken to Robben Island, and Sbongile, the only woman, was taken to Kroonstad. So 4 of us got prison sentence, and the rest were released. And quick to Robben Island. And when we reached Robben Island, I will never forget also the sound of old people like Mandela, who were shouting from their windows, asking who said, they knew already that we were coming to Robben Island. How? Don't ask me. I don't know what was their underground movement right on in prison. And then when we arrived, then they were shouting from their windows. And it was that moment when an advice that came from those old people that I'll never forget. I still thank them for that. Guys, please, immediately when you get in here, because it's just waiting outside, make sure education, 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 3 times. Please make sure education, education, education. We have a country to run after this. That motivated us. That made me even to forget that I'm still a 16-year-old. I remember that when I got in there, I hardly had a uniform that fitted me, the prison uniform. And but then spent the 7 years, and I always say the minister then was Minister Kruger, and Jimmy Kruger was the Minister of Police and Prisons, and still say, wherever he is in his grave, in hell or heaven, if he's in heaven, I'm going to fire him when I get there. and look, always ask, if I didn't go to prison, will I be this safe? My doubts. You know, many of those that I was with, because of our economic situation in the township. Oh, by the way, I'm still in the township. I'm still in Soweto. I was never taken by BEE. I was never taken by MP, Member of Parliament. No, I'm still where it happened and living with the people that made me. And I'm enjoying the support of the people in shacks around me. I see the poverty. I see the pain of my people, and I'm embracing them, and they know that we're doing all we can to be able to say, how can we help ourselves out of the situation? But having said that, I say Kruger, in a way, helped me by having to take me to prison. I know this sounds funny. This doesn't gel. But I say maybe I would be something else. I wouldn't be the father I am to my kids. Maybe I would be something else. But I got my matric behind bars. Mm. I got my first degree in education behind bars. I thought you were going to give me a hand.
I'm sorry. How do you even go about that behind bars?
In prison, at that time, there was a foreign organization, and it was, I think, one of the 2-3 countries coming together that was throwing in, including the Swedish government, and I think those countries there that had a fund called SAPET, South African Prisoners Education Trust, that was under the South African Council of Churches, that assisted people in detention and assisted people in prison to study. So that is why it was called South African Prisoners Education Trust. And then you were allowed to study by correspondence when you're behind bars. And then correspondence, the only a university that allowed correspondence was UNISA. And then the other ones were mostly colleges that are for high schools and all that. But us inside prison had our own classes. We're helping each other. So we were a university and a good college in there, and we helped each other quite a great deal. I don't remember any one of us who failed. No, I don't remember. And yes, that's what happened. And so maybe I should then put this in how I take my life. I usually summarize my life and say, I lived in 3 stone ages. Stone age number 1, it was when I was throwing stones against apartheid. I did it very well. That's why we don't have apartheid anymore. So I did that on everyone, and I did it for everyone. 2, it is Robben Island, when we're breaking stones, throwing stones, breaking stones in the quarry. And wait, got a stone. That's the stone.
Oh, wow.
That I got as a gift from Robben Island.
Now, when did you get that?
When I was out, that's very recent. Yeah. And so I was breaking stones in the quarry. And then so throwing stones, breaking stones. But here's my challenge to you, your listeners, and everyone. Post-1994, I say to young people and to South Africans and the world, it's time for us now to be gathering stones. This is the age we're in, stone gathering, to build the South Africa we want, the communities we want, the self we want, and the world we want.
Then maybe I can ask you a question on that, Seth. So we talk about building up South Africa and especially the role of young people in doing that. And I feel like young people today, their challenges are so different from obviously what you had to go through, because I think the youth of 1976, they had to grow up so incredibly fast. But do you see any comparisons between the youth of today and the youth then in regards to education, employment, debt inequality, just that general feeling of hopelessness? Is there anything you see when you look at the youth of today?
I always say, I don't like compartmentalizing the struggle, but I'm saying the struggle operates like a chain. What we did in 1976, that is why even within or under democracy, you still had fees must fall. Because what we could not finish off in 1976, fees must fall, realized that they need to pick up, and hence decolonization of education and all that. Let's talk. Even the issue of young people unemployment is just that we experience some of what we are experiencing today, but in different spaces. And I'm saying, and maybe at different levels. But, you know, the song, Senze Nina, What Have We Done? I still hear a lot of young people still sing that even during the struggle now. And yes, the challenges of our young people today is such that the only difference that might be there, it is the magnitude of unemployment. And it is such a pity. And now I'm going to get to Robben Island again. I'm going to be arrested. We are led by people who, unfortunately, do not care about the people, who care about the pockets. And I'm going to be blunt about that. And what is said is that some of these people leading now are people that were in the trenches with us. And these are the people who cannot even offer the democracy or the freedom that we fought for. And they're not offering it. The only thing that we have as an offer in this country from apartheid is that now what was the bullet is now the ballot. The only thing that we can offer, yes, and the only thing that we can offer to our people, you know, I sit here, Zoe. I told you I'm around here. It pains me to see young people who are walking around here as though it's a holiday. The reason being they're unemployed. It pains me to see people still in shacks Then someone stands up and reports that now there are 1,000,000 houses that they built for our people. By the way, when you talk million houses, you're talking RDP that is made out of ash instead out of stone. We're talking something that falls off. Go to click down in one of the areas and see how our people are reliving in squalor. Come here in Orlando East and see how people are living in shacks behind their yards. Where sometimes when you have a family, if you're a man, in the morning you must go out so that your wife and children can wash. And then from there you come in later. Now, how does any of those that are our leaders sleep, knowing that they're doing this to our people? And it hurts me. And the other thing that in this country I'm challenging Zol is that I think our electoral system must change. And I'm going to instigate you as young people that let's go for that. Because we are not electing a person that we can hold accountable in the system. We're electing a party. It is a party that gives us a person. And when you challenge that person says, I'm not accountable to you, but to my party. Now, I think it's about time that we think seriously in this country of our electoral system. And I'm hoping that the young people I'm working in with yourselves, Zoe and the rest, is that I'm hoping that now one of the things that we shall have to look at, the only freedom that you can bring for me before I go to heaven and try and see it's Mashinini and the rest, is that let us change our electoral system.
But then we look at the Human Science Research Council, and they're giving us figures saying that 76% of young people believe political parties aren't concerned about them. And 75% of you surveyed said they aren't even interested in politics at all. How do we change that?
You know why? It's exactly part of what Let's Start Gathering starts, is that let's change the system. Our young people, the Zoes are getting discouraged from even going to vote, mainly because they know they're voting for a party, a politicians. A group of politicians were thieves. But the day when Zoe and others are going to say, I'm voting for a Zoe I want to lead, okay, it's different. I'm telling you, you watch the space. Maybe that's why we'll get more young people getting enthusiastic about voting. But at the moment, they know, that they're voting for politicians who are just busy with their pockets, nothing else. And I'm saying there must be, the national dialogue should not be doing any other thing, but should be talking about, not even, I just don't like this because I know of many young people who would want to go and vote, but they're worried about who they're voting for and what they're getting out of the vote.
If you look at our parliament, 9% of MPs, 400 MPs, are under the age of 35. Yeah? How do we take a chapter out of your book and say, okay, we're going to get more young people into politics and making decisions? How do we do that?
I'm angry with you, young people. I'll tell you. I was telling many of them now as we are preparing for these forthcoming elections. I was saying to them, this should not, you guys, your IEC, your other organizations and all that are crying out, are trying to have you participating in these elections. You should not just be participating. You should not just be involved. You should actually be leading. Let's have more young people being councillors. The day young people stop just voting, even if they're 9%, voting other people, old people, to become MPs, we shall have changed this. My point is, young people should be voting for Zoe to go to parliament. We are going to elections now, the forthcoming elections. Let me assure you, many of you young people will be given T-shirts, given food, given all those things to vote for a party. I am challenging young people. I'm challenging young people, Zoe. I'm saying to young people, don't just get involved if you do on these elections. Don't just participate in these elections, but lead. Lead. Let's get to vote for young people to go into parliament. Not young people to keep on sitting there and saying, no, old people are there, but they're the ones who voted them. I think we should be starting that process. To me, the only next 1976 I'm going to start is the 1976 that says, young people take leadership and stop moaning. Go there and take it. And let's start. And again, I get worried though. Let me say this, again, having said that when many of our young people get into this leadership role, it is for you to look at Madlanga Commission. A young person such as a Samcele boy, okay? Young, that you think now because he was in that position was going to show ethical leadership. No. He was driving big cars. He was taking me doing in parliament, for goodness sake, Zoe. All I'm asking is that you young people should be starting a new movement, a new kind of concept of saying we are getting in and we are determined. Start that movement. Stop moaning about this, that now there are old people in parliament. You're making me angry. 1976, we had an action committee that in 3 days was in action. Now, I don't know, stop this thing of calling the summits, the dialogues, the what, that's what you young people like lately. Get into taking over. Get into taking over the power. Stop moaning about it. You understand? I tell these young people in the streets here, I said, this forthcoming local government elections, I'm not going to see any one of you voting, otherwise I'll have to take your ballot papers and tear them off. I'm joking. Yeah, but you've got to have young people. It is young people who change this country, so. It is young people of 1976. It is sad that we can have you as young people now changing this country. I want to get young people angry in a very constructive way, not in the stone throwing way, but in a stone gathering way. Because get angry, get one to take over. The start with the very elections that are coming now, which also allows many of you to even stand as independents. And the issue based also about this. Stop this thing of saying no jobs, no what. Yes, they are not there. And we are not going to get them because these old people are not going to give you those positions just like that. They are not. Forget it. Some of us, that's why we refuse to even go there, because we know that they will never let go of those positions. And it is for you. And I'm challenging South Africans. I'm challenging, when I say South Africans, I mean you, young people, black, white, gold, or whatever. It's time. It's time, guys. Please give us another 1976 in a stone gathering way, but the young people leading and taking over. We're tired of these old people. We have so much. You know, some people will say we gave you the country that is well run. You ran it down.
Okay, so is there anything that makes you optimistic about the young people of today in South Africa and maybe for the future?
Zoe, I deal with young people, let me assure you. The Seth Mazibuko Foundation, that's why I say I'm young. I'm surrounded by young people, and the very lady that organized this interview is a young lady of your age. And I hardly know how to use the social media. They help me. They help me. You know what I mean? So I'm getting excited about young people around me, and they remind me of the days I've lost. I was never young, and as you'd understand, and I get to say I'd rather use my last energy, you know, with these young people. And I'm very positive. I'm very positive about our young people. And that is why I always tell them, please do me a favor. Don't get deceived by those 350 rands. Don't get deceived by those grants. They're made to make you not question things. And that is why within Seth Mazibuko Foundation, we also have what we call courageous conversations for courageous activism. And most of our young people are showing a lot of wanting to get involved. So young people are not disappointed. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and surely it's not an oncoming train. So we are not up for disaster, but we are up for stars.
I think that's a really beautiful place for us to end this conversation, Seth. I appreciate your time today. It's been such an enlightening conversation. So I want to say thank you really for putting yourself out there and telling this story that still means so, so much to you. And hopefully our audience can see this story and, reignite the fire of change.
I appreciate this. Thanks, Zoe, and to also your listeners and people on your audience. And I'm humbled to be part of this. And I hope we are going to hold hands. We really need to save South Africa, and we owe it to those who did it with their blood. And I usually say, the tree of liberation shall be watered by the blood of the martyrs. It was watered by the blood of the martyrs. And you young people should be enjoying the fruit of the tree. If not the fruit of the tree, at least you should be enjoying the shade. But one thing for sure, let's keep on your age. You should be watering this tree of liberation with your sweat, not blood anymore. And we will win.